Thank you very much. Let me just share my screen and I'll just go through the presentation. I'll introduce myself very shortly, but yeah. So today is called How to Raise Confident Kids, and although there are probably many strategies and different things out there, what I'm gonna talk about is a little bit, or maybe you've come across it before, maybe you haven't, so it'd be really interesting to see. But it's gonna go look at like where confidence really comes from and where does it seem to disappear to when we say the common phrase that we hear is like, oh, lost our confidence. So where does it really disappear to, like whether it's for our kids or for ourselves? And then we're gonna cover the following points, really the one and only source of confidence, and what's the difference between confidence and competence. And when we really look at that difference, a lot of things might start making sense for you. And then finally, how do we create an ultimate environment at home that keeps our kids' confidence and promotes confident thinking going forward? So yeah, just a bit about myself. I am full-time mom. I home educate my 3 kids and do this parenting coaching on the side. I live in Reading with my husband, and I've been doing this for coming up to maybe nearly over 5 years now. But about 5 years ago, I discovered something called the psychological switch, or the 3 principles, or the inside out understanding, which I know probably might not make sense to you, but it basically was a deeper understanding of how our mind works and where our feelings actually come from, which really transformed my whole life and finally gave me the ability to parent in the way I always wanted to parent. So being a good parent, being a kind, patient, stress-free parent, and a guilt-free parent has always been on my top priority. But I never knew how to get there. I tried this, tried that, but this deeper understanding about how our mind works and where my feelings and my kids' feelings come from really gave me that transformation. And because it made such a huge impact on my life, I couldn't help it but train to share this understanding with other parents. And that's really has become my mission over the years, that I want to share this understanding with as many parents as possible, so they can have that stress-free, connected, peaceful parenting that we all really want to have, and also give a more deeper understanding in terms of how we support our children through the ups and downs of feelings and all the earlier on we mentioned about teens and their ups and downs, and how do we not take it personally. So all these things are what the psychological switch really gave me the solution to that. So that's a little bit about why I'm here and why I'm sharing whatever I'm sharing with you today. So we can dive right in. But before I say what I want to share, I would like to ask everybody here, like type in the chat as to where do you understand does confidence come from? Where do you, if you can just type it in the chat, like where do you think confidence comes from? Or and if you're watching the recording, you can do the same before I move on to the next part. So it's quite interesting to look back and see what you've written down. It can be just a one word or a sentence or whatever it is, like for you, that where do you think confidence comes comes from?
I'm not sure I answered that right, but that's how I feel.
A loving environment, says Jeremy. Yeah, I feel confident when my children are polite and kind. Okay, no, that's great. That's, you know, whatever it is for you, within you. Great. All great answers and all pretty much connected. But the thing is with you know, like you've seen in the chat, like we've, you know, for 3 different people, there are 3 different answers. So we all, you know, and that presents a dilemma that, okay, if confidence comes from a good environment, how come there are people that grow up in a good environment, yet they don't feel confident? And you know, you get that. And then there are people who grow up in a difficult environment, but they are very confident people. So it creates a dilemma if we, you know, if everybody has their own answers, which is fine, there's no problem with that as such. But there is, like, if we really want to answer the question, where does confidence come from? It really helps to have one answer that is applicable to everyone and that we can rely on, that doesn't have any anomalies, and that is like a constant. It's like every time we think, okay, where does confidence comes from? We know, okay, this is where confidence comes from. And you know, what I'm about to share might sound like, oh, that's not, you know, like that's not something big, but it is if we think about it in a more deeper way. But there's only really one source of confidence, and how can I be so sure? Because yeah, I've like well, could say I've lived with this understanding for the last 5 years, and it's never changed. It's always been reliable, and it's been 100% true all the time. But the only source of confidence is really thought in the moment. And it's not like it literally is that if we don't think confident, we're not gonna feel confident. It doesn't matter how loving the environment is, or how well our kids behave or don't behave, or how much you've practiced a skill. If you're not thinking in a confident way, you're not gonna feel confident. Yeah, it's because it's either you're thinking confidently and you're feeling confidently, because thought in the moment is creating that feeling of confidence, or you're thinking in an insecure way. So, you know, sometimes it feels like that we've lost our confidence, or let's say even our children, like we feel like, you know, we do certain things or teach them certain things, and we build up their confidence because it looks like by teaching the skill, we're gonna give them the confidence. But then they still they still don't feel confident in that moment. For example, a typical example which I remember as kids happened as well, like you know, you practice for a performance. Let's say you get your kids to practice for a performance, and then they're like, you know, they're doing well and everything is going fine, but then they are completely competent in that performance. But then on the day, they're having really, you know, they're anxious, they're having a lot of insecure feeling and this and that, and that's because they're not thinking confident in that on that day. And it doesn't matter how competent they've become in the skill, if they're not thinking in a confident way, they're not going to feel confident. And then it looks like, oh my gosh, you know, maybe we haven't practiced enough, or maybe this is not for them, or maybe, you know, we try to find all sorts of different answers, but actually there is only one source of confidence. And when we realize that, we can handle the situation so much more differently. We understand that it's not that they've lost their confidence, but they're just not thinking confidently in that moment, and that's why they're not feeling confident, and that's why suddenly they're all nervous and insecure, or they're in all sorts of other feelings, but not in the feeling of confidence.
Yeah. Power of the mind.
Pardon?
Power of the mind.
Power of the mind. It is all. Yeah, the misunderstanding we fall into is that we have to build our confidence over years and years and years, and then we lose it just like that. That's also like a big frustration, because it can be big performers struggle with this. And I know many real stories of people who literally perform on stage, but they will tell you that they feel completely insecure, although they're performing fine. So they can do the skill, but because they don't not thinking in a confident way, and they are not realizing that confidence is only coming from thought moment. But if you're thinking confident in that moment, they literally will do the performance, but from an insecure place, or from not really enjoying it, because they're not feeling confident. Yeah, but the question is like, we say we lose our confidence. So where does it really go? Like, it's a really interesting statement that gets thrown around a lot. Like, I hear it all the time from parents, like, oh, my child was really confident, as a young child, and then they lose it. And essentially, the only thing that happens, which I'll go more into in when we create about the environment, is that their mind, they pick up more and more insecure thinking, or more and more ways of insecure thinking, while actually their natural state is confidence. Like when I teach children about this, I tell them that one of their natural superpowers, that they're always the confidence is always there. They always have access to confident thinking. It just gets covered up sometimes. So it's very strange that this statement that we lose our confidence. I think, well, it's fall out of our pocket. I don't know, where does it go? And the interesting thing is, like, if you think about it, we've never met an insecure baby. I know, Dominique, you said you had a 9-month-old, right? They're completely, like, they're just comfortable within their skin. They don't, if they need something, they'll ask for it, in whichever way, like screaming, crying, pulling. It's, they don't feel like, oh no, should I ask my mom for food because she might not, she might be busy, or, they don't have any insecurity like that, because they haven't learned insecure thinking yet. They haven't even come across it. So we're all born with this. We all, like, it's a superpower we all have, but it just gets covered up. And yeah, confidence comes from a state of mind in the moment and nowhere else. Like, if you think about it, a baby, who, or even toddlers, they're very confident people, because they don't know about insecure thinking yet. So yeah, it's accessible to a state of mind. We have to think in a confident way to feel confident, and it comes from nowhere and it goes to nowhere. It's like, you don't need to practice something or do something or learn something, or it's just there. And if we understand that, it's a completely different way we can help our children to be confident, and also be more confident as parents ourselves, like realizing that we actually never can lose it. And the more in touch we are with this truth, the more we're in touch with our wisdom, which will tell us what to do in the moment too. Yeah, I don't know, you might be familiar with Superman's story, where it literally plays the two characters, which displays this quite nicely, that in the film or in the series, is he this confident Superman person, And at the same time, he can be this completely insecure, hiding away. Forgot his name now. What his
Clark Kent.
Yeah, Clark. That's the word. So yeah, there so it's like two personalities in one. But if you think about it from this perspective, is what changes in the two characters, and all that changes is his way of thinking. As a Superman person with wearing those Superman clothes or Superwoman clothes, you can be just yeah, he's thinking in a confident way because he's thinking, I know what I'm doing, I know I can do it, and that's it. While in the Clark Kent thing, it's like, oh, I'm sort of need this hidden insecure person who doesn't know what he's doing, and but the only thing that's changing from one character to the other is the thinking. There's another great example in the movie Tangled, and if you've watched it, you might have noticed it, where she literally goes from, feeling really happy that she left the tower to feeling really upset that she left the tower. And in that, again, you can really see that the circumstances are the same, the situation is the same, the past is the same, everything is the same, but what's changing is thinking in the moment. So another good example is Hermione versus Ron in
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Yeah, it's like, what's the difference between the two characters? Hermione chooses to think confidently, and Ron is stuck in the insecure thinking way. So he's unable to, or hesitant to make decisions, while she's like, well, I can do this, I'm doing it, and that's it. Like, sort of, so the difference is the way, their state of mind, how they're using this power of thought, moment by moment by moment. That's, I think, yeah. So there is like something I've put together called the confidence scale, which is in my course, which I will share a bit about more throughout the rest of the presentation. But that's literally the first point about where does confidence come from. And also we'll have Q&A in the end. So if you have any questions, write them down and we'll go through them in the end. But another really important thing, which I think I've already touched on, is the difference between confidence and competence, because that's what we're really getting mixed up. And just for clarity, I've actually taken definitions from official Oxford Cambridge dictionaries in terms of what are the actual definitions given in there, and they really explain a lot. So competence is the ability to do something successfully. So the key word is here, to do. So competence is about repetition, about practice, about doing the skill until you become successful and very efficient in it. So that's, if we want our kids to be competent in maths, we'll get them to do repetition, we'll get them to do the exercises until they become successful and efficient in it. And really, if we want to be terminologically accurate, we want to be saying to them, not you're confident in maths, but you want to say to them, okay, you have a competence in maths now. That's really how I explain it to my kids now. When you've mastered a skill, we generally, what's used is confidence, but as we know, confidence is a state of mind, and you can be, completely competent at something but not feel confident about it. The two don't cause one another. Like, your ability to do something well does not make you confidence in it, because you can be completely competent and have be so insecure about it. Yeah, so while the definition of confidence is the feeling or belief that one can have faith in something or rely on someone or something. So again, here the key is that it's a feeling, like confidence is a feeling. And given that feelings come from thought, moment by moment by moment, it really depends. Are you believing that you're confident in that moment, or are you thinking confident and feeling confident? And your competence can be there or not be there. You know, the two are not correlated. And like, interesting enough, I got it the other way around as well. It can happen that you can be very confident, you can think very confident. And I know is with my own son, my 14-year-old, he, you know, he's very confident, like his thinking is very confident, but it's sometimes, you know, he's so confident that he is competent, but the two don't match up. So, you know, his ability in, let's say, to do some of his computer science work, you know, he'll overestimate his competence because he doesn't have any insecure thinking about it. So you can see the two are not causing one another. They're separate things. One is about doing, and one is a feeling, and one does not cause the other. When this is like really clear, we can, it becomes very different to, you know, in terms of educating our children or dealing with anything, like any issues at school or anything. It's like when we differentiate, when we really are clear about the differences, it makes a huge difference. Yeah, I don't know. Another example is a timetable nightmare that you know, we spend ages teaching the kids the timetable or getting them to memorize, and then they forget about it, and or they don't feel like, or you have this, prepare them for a competition, let's say, and then they are competent, but then because they're not feeling or thinking confident in that moment, it can all go out of the window. So it's but when we understand the two differences, we don't panic. We know what's happened. And the same for
Safia,
exam stories. Yes.
sorry, I think Julia had her hand up, or was that not her hand? It was my mouse, I think. Sorry, Julia, if I'm wrong. It had a little hand on the corner, but it was actually my mouse. Sorry, I thought she had a question. Ignore
No
me.
problem. No.
No, she's saying it's not. No, it's okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Yeah, or exam stories is interesting. Again, like, yeah, it can be the difference of a child being very competent, but then not feeling confident that they can actually do the exam. And then, you know, that's how, like, on the day, feelings get in the way of our competence. So when we can, you know, help our children or make this clear for them, then it actually does get so much easier, because they don't panic that, you know, even if they don't feel confident for a while, or they are feeling whatever they're feeling, it's okay. And we can tell them, look, just because you don't feel like you can do it, it does not take away your competence, or it does not negate all the things that you've learned, because that's what can often happen. It can be like, oh gosh, I'm not feeling confident. That means that, you know, everything that I've learned it's flown away, or it's fallen out, or it's like gone. But that's not the case. It's just a temporary change of state of mind. Another point that will take a while to go into is, you know, never lose your confidence again, and that's also covered in my course. But which, I can just share a bit about today is, so I have created a course that goes into more details in terms of where confidence comes from and the confidence scale and how to assess where our children are, and in terms of setting up, things in a way that you don't lose, you don't seem, it doesn't look like that anymore, that you've lost your confidence as a parent or your kids have lost their confidence. And ultimately the key is that when we as parents understand this from a deeper point of view, from a truth, then it automatically gets passed on to our children, because we just parents from a much different way when we are not scared that, we are not scared or concerned that just because they're feeling insecure for a moment or even for a few hours or for a day, it does not mean that they've lost their confidence or they won't, because it's always there. Like at any point they can rip off, like Ken Clark's suit that he puts on top and the Superman suit is always there underneath. And that's how it is with confidence. It's like it's always there, just the way Superman always wears his suit. It's always there. Yeah, so just some questions. Sorry, yeah, this is actually I did teach the course back in July live, but the recording of it is available now. Yeah, but if you just want to ask yourself some questions in terms of, what would it be worth to you to have confident kids? And actually, the biggest thing that this course gives you, it empowers you as a parent to realize where confidence really comes from, and that's what you will give you the the confidence as a parent, or the competence to parent from a very different perspective. But it's also, it's also about raising kids that are grounded in beliefs, and we know that challenges are coming up, and if you have any different beliefs from anybody else, like even medically or any other way, morally, then they always, that's always a challenge. And one of the biggest thing obviously is bullying online and in school. So having a confident child, really a child who knows where their confidence comes from, is a big thing. And that's really what the course is designed to do. Yeah, and whatever I learned is worth millions for me, and I've really invested in myself so I can pass on the best stuff. Yeah, for everybody who's here today, if you're not on my email list yet, you can go to coachsafia.com/gift and get on my email list, and I will be sharing details on the newsletters, etc., coming up about how you can get access to this Confident Parent, Confident Kids course. And when you join the email list, you also get access to 2 master classes that you can watch immediately. One is on peaceful parenting, and then another one is on also raising confident and happy kids. So yeah, the best way to find out more for anything I do is really to join my mailing list, where I share many parenting tips, stories, and anything that I've created for parents to have the parenting they want. So for the final point, to create the ultimate environment, as I said before, like, all kids are naturally born confident. So how can we help with the environment? Obviously, given that confidence comes from thought in the moment, you can't force them to think confidently, but you can create an environment where where there's less of that insecure thinking that they learn. So that's what it's really about. It's not about somehow forcing them to think confidently, because we can't, but we can create an environment where they don't even pick up so many limiting beliefs that lead to that insecure thinking. So there's an interesting quote from Henry Ford, where he said that if you say you can do it, you're right. And if you say you can't do it, you're right too. So this is really about, it's again, it really points towards the truth that if it says, if you say you can do it, if you think you can do it, if you feel you can do it, you're right. And again, if you're thinking you can't do it, you're feeling that you can't do it, so you're right too. So it's coming from inside out. So
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry, Sophia. I think Jeremy had a question. Is that right, Jeremy? Were you had your hand up?
Yeah, it was just about adding our names to the email list and how we can get onto that newsletter.
Yeah, you can go to the website, or if you like, you can just put the email address in your email in the chat, and I can add you with your permission. Yeah, so that is either whichever way. I could put the link in the chat shortly as well, so you can.
The link's in the chat, and if you
Okay, so right in the chat.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
thank
okay. I was
you.
about to say, Jeremy, if you wanted it just privately, that's fine, but it's fine. It's on there. It's on there now.
Okay, right. So one of the key things that happens is like, go along, kids are growing up, and then they start, they become older, and they start making mistakes. And if we sort of, correct them a lot, or like, go down the route of, okay, why did you do that, or telling them off, or not handling it in a very gentle, forgiving way, that's really what starts creating that insecure way of thinking about making mistakes, and about the environment, and about other people. And that's where kids start picking up this thinking ideas like, oh my gosh, what if I get it wrong? What will happen? What are the consequences? It's like, those sort of things. And then they that is really what then becomes a thought pattern over time. So the idea of to create the ultimate confident environment is like, for them to know that they can make mistakes, they can trip up, they can repeat mistakes many times, but they don't need to have any fear of getting told off. Like, and obviously, we're all humans, and we fall for it, but if we can create that environment as much as possible, that's really what leaves out the, like, sort of what weeds out the insecure thinking and the limiting beliefs that we pick up. And experiences like that, okay, I can make these mistakes, but I know, my parents will be understanding, or my teachers, or like whatever it is. That's what really helps the kids to stay in that confident way of thinking about stuff. And yeah, I've got, a 10-year-old, and he likes, like, to do everything himself. Like, as soon as he learns something, he'll try it. And it's like, can be all sorts of stuff, but he surprises me all the time. But because he doesn't have much, like, fear of much consequences, he'll try all sorts of stuff. And cooking himself in the ninja cooker, and which is not really that safe, but it just shows that he has, like, his thinking is on the side of confident thinking. Like, he was like, oh, I can do it. Like, he will say, he's thinking, I can do it. And that's why he does it. And yeah, things go wrong, mistakes happen, but it's okay. That's the learning process. So if we can keep it on the side of like, okay, I can do it. And if I need help, I'll ask for help, or I can get it started, or like using the phrase a lot with our kids, you can do it. Like, you, even for simple things like you can put your plate in the dishwasher, or you can pick up your clothes, or you can tidy up, or you can, like, in creating that sort of you can environment. And this is really from, you know, an ancient prophetic art, if you want to call that, that it actually, the way we want to correct bad behavior or unwanted behavior or challenging behavior is not by pointing out what's going wrong, but by telling them what they can do instead. So just some simple examples are, yeah, like I said, tell them if they, you know, if there's some sort of person like that child that keeps leaving their plate on the table, and you've said many times that, you know, can you just put it in the dishwasher? There is no point in pointing out what they haven't done, but always point them towards what they can do. And eventually that will lead to a habit that they will remember. And it can take months, it can take years, but it does pay off. Yeah, but that's, if you want that, you know, confident, peaceful environment, that's really what it takes. Another one is just like, you know, rather than saying, oh my gosh, I've told you for 10 million times that you can't play football in the living room, just say calmly and quietly that you could play ball in the garden or in the corridor or something. So always telling them what they can do, which is that pointing them towards the I can thinking and I can feeling, rather than pointing out what they should not do or can't do. There is actually no point, I should say point, not pin, to pointing out the wrong behavior. It can be very tempting, and often it feels like, as parents, like, oh, okay, if we don't point out the wrong behavior, then they won't learn, but actually pointing to them towards what to do instead is much more beneficial than pointing out what they shouldn't do. Yeah, so this is what keeps them thinking confident rather than insecure thinking creeping in, because yeah, insecure thinking basically comes from not being sure, being afraid, of having consequences of being told off, etc. So that's really what I wanted to share today. Just a quick summary. The source of confidence is thought in the moment and nothing else. It's really important to keep in mind the difference between competence and confidence. And to create an environment, we need to have the freedom to make mistakes without the fear of being told off.